do I find beautiful colors? I think it's just a projector here. I don't think I really try and keep the colors true to. I don't really like Photoshop pictures where the colors are too jazzed up and oversaturated. I think it starts to look cartoonish and unreal. So I try and keep it real. So. Oh yeah, the question's about being in one particular type of photography, and can you sort of? I think you probably, photographers. I think the great photographers develop a particular style and do kind of a particular thing. Whether it's wildlife or street photography or landscape or whatever. I don't think you can really. You can do a wildlife photographer can certainly make wonderful landscapes, but I think that you end up finding one particular type of photography one particular genre that you kind of stick with, and you get known for that sort of thing. I can't really think of a person who's sort of. In fact, most writers don't really photograph that well, and most photographers don't really write. So you kind of have to find your own kind of groove and roll with it. Well, I've had great fun with digital photography. I think it's kind of in some ways opened up a whole new world, being able to photograph at really low light levels. I guess you all heard the news just a few hours ago that Kodachrome, which was sort of the mainstay of National Geographic for decades, and has been discontinued, and that's the end of the story. I have in my archive in New York, I have about 800,000 transparencies, mostly Kodachrome. So I was a big fan and used it for decades. So it's really kind of an old friend who's just sort of passed away. Kind of a sad thing. I've actually, if you Google Kodachrome tonight when you go home, there's a lot of stories about how I'm going to be given one of the last rolls of Kodachrome to shoot as sort of a way to honor the memory of. Check it out. It's already in the works, man. Somebody actually emailed me today and suggested that I photograph on that last roll. Photograph Paul Simon, who had had the song about Kodachrome. Yeah, the question about detaching yourself when things get really bad in some kind of terrible situation. When you were asking your question, I was thinking of 9/11 and how upsetting it was and disturbing, and my brain, all of our brains couldn't compute the thing, and it was just sort of overload, And I remember that day just trying to kind of remove myself, see a little bit of a detachment, so that I could literally just function, because you just wanted to curl up in a ball and hide under your bed, sort of. So I remember just saying to myself, just trying to allow my brain to sort of be on automatic pilot and just let that kind of thing kind of flow and not try and overthink it. Because if you can get so sort of nervous that you just kind of fall apart and you just sort of, So I didn't want that to happen. I knew that there was something that had to be documented, and since that's what I do, I didn't want to drop the ball. So that's, But I think you have to kind of compartmentalize a little bit. I often talk about how it's a little bit like a surgeon who, maybe lose the patient on the operating table, but at the end of the day, you have to go home and live your life and come back the next morning and continue to work. and you don't want to be burdened and depressed. And, I mean, I don't want the doctor, I want him to come in fresh and feeling, good about, what he's going to do to me. And so I think you have to kind of compartmentalize things if you're a war photographer or areas of conflict. Otherwise, you just... That's a good question about how do you photograph people on the street and meet people, strangers, and potentially speak their language. And how do you manage? People are naturally suspicious, and a bit, if somebody came up to me on the street and wanted to photograph me, I would suddenly say, "Well, wait a minute, I'm late for a meeting. I don't think I." But I think it's sort of a combination of having a genuine. I think if you can convey a genuine interest in that person, and if you can establish some sort of a trust, and perhaps bring a little bit of humor and relax the person, and create a atmosphere that's of ease and relaxed. I think that people will come to a point where they're flattered and happy that somebody's interested in them and thinks they're interesting, et cetera, and then a little bit of begging helps when you get on your knees and plead for people to. So I think it's a lot of, but I think you have to have your own self-confidence and believe in what you're doing, that this person that you're talking to, it's a great. It's going to make a great portrait, and it's going to be great for them, it's going to be great for you, and that it's going to, I think that's the space you want to kind of get into, and then involve the person, bring the person into the process, and have them participate, maybe show them the picture in the back of the camera, and once they see that indeed they look pretty damn good in their, then they sort of really get into it. And then they, it happened just recently in India. A little weren't quite sure, and then you show them the picture, and they really get fired up and want to. I think that's part of, and I think years of experience helps too. Pictures of people that I kind of met on the street or in a village or whatever, and that I strive to make it as natural as possible, and try and get down to a place where they're not posed, they're relaxed, and they're trying to get it in something that's completely natural. So the title really comes from an interview I gave where I talked about in the course of the conversation, photographing people in unguarded moments. So they may be looking into the camera, and they may agree to be photographed, but they weren't sort of posed or coached or asked to do a particular this thing or that. They're just completely, hopefully just completely natural. And well, I love animals. Talking about other things, and I always have a big collection of. They're not wild animals, mostly cats and dogs and things like that. But I don't know if this answers your question, but children and animals are two of my favorite subjects to shoot, and they're both completely uncontrollable, and children just do exactly what they want, and it's, you just have to work very quickly, and just, because I always found that they're, once they decided the shoot's over, which could only be a few seconds, then that's never ever going to get them back again.